Hello and welcome to the Patron Saints of Pop Culture podcast. As always, I am your co-saint, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I am Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Glow Season 2!
We're going to be talking about the entire season. What's funny is that we kind of felt like they were reaching out to us afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you all got the same thing after the season, but they had some moments that they said, let's talk about, and then they talked about the three major themes for the season.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like Netflix, you were kind of talking to us.
But I also feel like they didn't pick, the best themes. But anyway.
But we are talking about two of those.
We are, yes.
So, Netflix, if you want to give a shout out to us next time, we'd be okay with that.
I highly doubt that Netflix is going to reach out to us.
Yeah.
A meeker, mediocre podcast to promote Glow.
I mean, they can to our 20 listeners.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they can. I just don't think that it will come true.
Well, I'm just, Anyway. Our summary and review for Season 2 of Glow. I would say that my summary is... See, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling really hit their stride in round 2. Sorry, I'm just a little upset about that missed opportunity. They could have gone with round 2 of the show and really make it something that is their own since they get pushed to a 2 a.m. Time slot.
Okay.
That's my summary.
Sounds good. My summary: the gorgeous ladies of wrestling are back and better than ever, but not really, because now that they've been picked up, they kind of have a lot of rules that they have to follow, and they don't really like it, and they get mad at each other like they did last season, and now they're moving to Vegas.
All right. I really did feel that Netflix did a great job with Season 2. Season 2 was fantastic. I think it was much better than Luke Cage Season 2. If you have not yet heard our episode on Luke Cage Season 2, you can go back and listen to that one. We did not enjoy that season, but we did really enjoy this season. I really felt like it was a good break to the sad, depressing reality that we live in.
Yep.
And it was definitely something worth watching, something that was able to kind of a nice break from reality, as it were.
Yes.
So I will give it a blessing.
Yes. I also enjoyed Season 2. I think that I kind of missed hearing some of the backstories with some of the other cast members in the background. They kind of sort of brought some in, but it wasn't too in detail. And that's what I love about Glow is the cast and the different aspects of all of the girls and women that are in there. And the fact that we only got a few just kind of left me wanting more. I did not have a satisfactory sandwich on that. But the parts that I did see, I really enjoyed. I really liked the episode where they did the the montage of the different cutscenes that they did.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed that. That's probably my favorite episode.
Well, there's a lot of 80s nostalgia and done in a good way.
Yes.
If you've heard my only episode on our Blessings and Curses review podcast for Ready Player One, that's 80s nostalgia done the bad way, is that movie, which is why we will never talk about it on this show.
That's okay. They gave it a good try.
We're not going to go there again. So this is something that I really wanted to talk about was not just the family aspect of it, but the fact that it's more of a community for Ruth. And I think that especially when she had broken her leg and people were telling her, oh, it's just a show, she kind of had that reaction of it's more than just a show. Mm-hmm. That all of this is more than just, what we do on the screen. And it reminded me so much of acting. It reminded me
Well,
so much of
they are
being
acting.
well, yeah, but I mean, like, no, it reminded me so much of being in shows myself, and my theater career is, and so I was trying to find a certain quote. I couldn't find the actual quote that I was looking for, but I loved this quote while I was looking for it. It says that acting is standing up naked and turning around slowly. That was Rosalind Russell who said that. And in my experience, that's very much what acting was for me. Was just that immense vulnerability, and kind of being vulnerable to everybody in the cast, and that's how you kind of fell in love with everybody that was there. That you were able to be vulnerable.
You did fall in love with one of them.
Well, I did, yes. But you develop this real true sense of family and community with the cast and crew of a show that you're doing. And it's a very real bond because you're working on the same project together. You see each other day in and day out. If you've ever been in a theater show, you know that you put in very long, tedious hours all working together towards this one goal. Whether or not the show was good or bad, it doesn't really matter because you really had that sense of community. Mm-hmm. And, I think another reason why I love the show Glow is because it's that sense of theatricality that I miss now being on the outside of theater, is that, you see the kind of the effort that the girls put into making the show, and it's kind of more of that how the show comes together thing.
Yeah.
Like, as Noises Off is to just silliness in theater, how a theater show comes together. This is, I think, Glow is more like the reality and the vulnerability of just building that community around a ladies wrestling show.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not just Ruth that experienced it too. I mean, we also see, oh my gosh, Britannica. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I can't tell you what her...
I know her name, but it's missing from my vocab right now. But when she, listens to... Rhonda, that's her name.
Rhonda.
When she listens to the girls and goes to I guess, turn herself in.
Yeah.
She's mad at them, but she's not, super... She's mad at them in a way that you'd be mad at your family, if they gave you a bad advice and you followed it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You still love them. That it was out of, love and support and understanding because they really wanted her to continue to work with them. And it just kind of, backfired. And she was more upset with the fact that she had to leave them. That she was being deported and she didn't want to leave and go back to her actual family because they're her family now.
Yeah, and this sense of community, and we talked about this a little bit with Stranger Things, season 2, was getting a new person into the community, and you had the new Jung Chain, in the season.
Yep.
Which it took her a few episodes to kind of get ingrained in the community, but she became a part of the community. It became part of the family throughout the entire season, and this is something that I think that we got a little bit from the Netflix shout out afterwards there that that the show was about family, not in just the blood relation, but also in the non-familial relationships. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very true of the way that community should be, is that you should be able to be yourself and be completely vulnerable with each other. Be able to still be mad at them for, silly things like losing your jacket over a bet, or trading your birthright jacket for an enema, as it were. And that, they were still family after that.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. And you could tell that all the actors on the show really enjoy being on the show. They were having fun. And this is, I think, a sign of a good show is when you have so much fun doing what you're doing. And then you're all able to be vulnerable with each other. And I can imagine the actors in the show are just, fantastic with each other. I don't even know if Mark Maron has talked about doing the show on his podcast. He is the second highest rated podcast out there. So I don't know. Somebody who listens to his podcast, let us know.
Who is that for the people
Sam.
who don't know? Okay.
Most people. Okay. So I think that this is something that kind of brings in a little bit with the parenting, is the parenting in and out of the community. You have Tammy here, who is welfare queen. If you kind of forgot about who the character names. And the character name and so there's 3 names. Anyway, that Tammy has that whole episode where she's kind of dealing with the racism in her role and being a parent, and her son seeing this, and it's kind of like the merging of 2 worlds for her.
Yeah.
And I think this is very true of those of us who parent outside of a community, is that, like, when we're looking for communities, we look for communities for ourselves. That when we try to merge those communities, it's really, really difficult, and you end up kind of losing some of it. You saw that since she had an adult child, that it wasn't going to be a big impediment for her.
Yeah.
That, the ladies, that was her community. And that, they were going to work together to try to make it a little bit better for her on the inside there. Then you also had Sam, who in essence was, this whole community was his parenting backup. It was his support community. You saw this kind of how he parented.
Kinda.
Yeah, kind of. Well, he was trying to jump into that role now as an adult, as he didn't really know he had a daughter until season 1. Mm-hmm. And then this season he's trying to step into that role and trying out different things and seeing how it fits him, and seeing that it does actually fit him pretty well.
Yeah.
And he's, cleaning up his act, trying to be better, and realizing that this was his community. This was his support system. He did lean a little bit heavily on Ruth, and there was that weird sexual tension there between Ruth and Sam, which I don't know if they're going to develop that in season 3 or not.
Oh, I'm sure
they're probably going to go there. Yeah. And then you had Debbie, who, she was a parent before coming to this community, but she went through so much outside of the community that she tried to keep things separate, completely separate from her community and her home life.
Yeah.
And you saw how devastating that was for her. Seeing her ex, with his new girlfriend and with the baby and all of this other stuff. And I think that for her, I think that's very true of those of us who are trying to find, like us, who are parents and have no community. We have no support system, but if we ever find a support system, trying to blend those 2 worlds into one is going to be a very difficult task for us. Yeah. And I think this is something that this show does a fantastic job of showing that struggle. Is it doesn't give solutions, it just shows the struggle. Yeah. And I just love that. That was just a beautiful thing, and that community wrap up there. And I think that this is not something that I have a conclusion on. It's just something that I think it's something that we need to talk about, as human beings, as our communities and parenting and the way we should have community.
Yeah, because we really need it. Not having an actual community makes things really difficult. For example, we may have to pass up a promotion because we can't find a sitter, for example. Yeah. So, that's stuff that we have to deal with. And that kind of actually brings me to women in the workplace. Because ironically enough, that scenario happens to a lot of women. Not having to pass up promotions because they can't find a sitter. Mm-hmm. Or something around that same, essentially not being able to do something for work because you can't find a sitter. And then it's going to be detrimental to your work. So I feel like Glow Season 2 really focused on working women tropes. Mm-hmm. There were some main big working women tropes. The first one that I more identify with, well, I'm kind of both. I'm going to talk about both Ruth and Debbie and how they're different tropes in themselves. I feel more Ruthish, I guess, and a little bit of Debbie. But with Ruth, I mean, she's clearly a hard worker. Like, she puts her whole heart and soul into her job.
Yeah.
Like, you give her a task, even if you don't give her instructions, Sam.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're going to give somebody a task and you don't give them instructions, don't get mad at the outcome. Anyway.
Well, as he explained, in his defense, he did explain it, was that he was getting in his own way, that he was accustomed to a certain level of failure, and things like that showed that it wasn't failing.
Yeah.
And so it was more like self-sabotage, which, we talked about self-sabotage before, and anyway. But that's my own take on it. It was that, he got mad because he was self-sabotaging.
Oh, yeah. But still, in general, like, if you're going to tell somebody to get something done, but don't tell them how you want it to get done.
Yeah.
Don't get mad about the result if you don't like it. And not only is she working harder, she's doing more work. She's not getting paid extra for it. Like, we don't know the exact details of the contracts, but I'm sure she's getting paid just as much as Machu Picchu and just as much as Choke Chain, or Junk Chain. I'm sorry, not Choke Chain, Junk Chain. Oops. But anyway, I'm sure she's getting paid the same amount, but now that she has shown Sam that she's willing to put in the extra work and the extra time, he knows that she's still going to do it, even if she doesn't ask for more money. And so he's going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, this was even in church workplaces, this is something that ends up happening with all genders. It's this weird power system that's in place, is that, you do this level of work, well, then, you should be expected to continue this level of work for the same amount of pay over and over and over again. Even though what you're doing is good work, that we're not going to recognize it. We're just going to keep, having you do that. Yeah.
Well, the problem is, though, like with Ruth and with a lot of women, she has a set job. Like, this is her job. This is what she's supposed to do in the contract. But because of what she's done in the past, she is expected to do more. Mm-hmm. For example, I don't know if you've heard about this, but the next time you're in a meeting and they ask somebody to be the secretary or the note taker, it's going to be a woman. Like, I have never been in a meeting where a man has volunteered to take notes. It's always been the woman that is expected to take notes. The only time a man has taken notes is when a supervisor has specifically asked him to do it. Huh. Because women are, I don't know, I think it's part of the whole, secretary thing. Like, that was a role that we were allowed to do when we first went into the workplace, is to become secretaries.
An implicit bias?
Yes, and it's just kind of followed us. I have flat out said, when somebody asks me to take notes, I say, no, I'm not going to do it. And it always gets, they always go, what? I will, because I, am a terrible note taker. Like, when I'm done taking notes, I can't tell you what I took notes for. Because I'm just that bad. 2, my handwriting is bad. So when I try to read back the notes I have, I don't know what I wrote.
If you're a Patreon subscriber, I will be uploading all of our outlines for the shows, so you will be able to see that handwriting.
Third, I'm a terrible speller, so when people look at my notes, they think I'm an idiot. So
both of us are, so you'll see that.
But I mean, that's anyway. So that's my example of in the real world, women are expected to do this extra work, aka a lot of the times being the secretary, and Ruth is also expected to do this extra work, aka writing and directing by herself, even though she's not a director. And another thing that happens all the time, that happens to Ruth, and they even brought it up too. This is the reason why, I can't remember the Viking girl's name.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm blanking on her name too.
It's okay.
She really wasn't in this season because she was fired in the second episode.
Yeah, in our defense, that's why we don't know her name. But anyway, the reason why she got fired is because she pointed out, you did well that last show because Ruth did all the work. Mm-hmm. You took credit for it, and it was all Ruth that did it. And again, she brings it up, and he fires her.
Yep.
And that happens again all the time. Watch. Like, if you guys are in one of those companies that they do a lot of meetings and do a lot of, like, brainstorming type of stuff, just watch. A woman will bring up an idea, and then probably about a few minutes later, a man will bring up the same idea, maybe worded a little bit differently, but then he's given the credit for it. But the only reason why he thought of it in the first place is because she put that seed in his brain to start with.
Well, it's happened to me before, but I'm not a woman.
Well, you also are an introvert, so there's a difference to that as well, too.
Well, and I think it's also that power system at play as well with, people seeing me as lesser because I was only a youth minister or because I was Mexican and the people in charge were white. And, yeah. Yeah.
Moving on to Debbie. She also is another trope that we have, which is the token, like, woman executive, or there's like those companies that will tote around, hey, we now have a woman on our board of directors. Look at us. We're so progressive. Woohoo. And now it's a lot better. Like, we work for a company that has a woman at the head of our company, and I mean, she's awesome. But back when Debbie was, back in the 80s, I should say, that didn't happen a lot. They really had no real power. And when they were in those boardrooms, they were expected to be the ones that took notes. They were the ones that came up with a great idea, and then 5 minutes later, a man would say the same thing, just worded a little bit differently, and they would take the credit for it. And the only reason why they were really put into that position was because the company felt like they were forced to, aka, like, that's exactly what happened to Debbie. I mean, she did have her husband with her, or ex-husband, I should say, to, like, help her get into that position, which they allowed for. But then when she was in that position, like, Sam and Bash just kind of, like, wrote her off. Like, whatever. We let the boys handle it. You just go home to your baby, whatever.
Yeah.
And you also see that, like, they go out for drinks, they say, but they really end up talking about a lot of business work. And that happens a lot, too. That happens all the time to people who have families, who have to go back to their families. And if the other people at work who don't have families are able to go out after work over drinks and talk business, you miss out on a lot of opportunities. There was actually a thing in my high school where they would offer to teach girls how to play golf as, like, a leg up, because they knew that a lot of the big companies going out and playing golf was a way to, have a business meeting, even though it wasn't really a business meeting. And so a lot of women were actually left behind because they didn't know how to play golf, and so they didn't go along with it. So I don't know if that program is in place anymore. I don't know how frequent golf meetings are anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it's a thing anymore. But it was prevalent enough to where they went around to my high school and offered to teach this to us. I mean, I have a terrible golf swing. Like, I have no chance. Like, just let me sit in the golf cart.
It's probably good that they don't do golf meetings anymore then.
Yeah, because I'm terrible. Now, I'll go out to drinks all night. As long as I have a sitter. I'll go out to drinks all night. But she missed a lot of meetings, a lot of big, important meetings. And she, of course, was mad when they would make these decisions without her, even though she was supposed to be in the meeting and have decisions just like them. Mm-hmm. And it happened. It still happens all the time, because we still have not broken the glass ceiling. And then just to touch a little bit on the other girls with women in the workplace, some common things that have happened. Again, when Dawn and Stacy, still Archie's idea of transforming. Like, all of a sudden, the character dies, but then she comes back as something else. And that made me so mad. That just made me so mad. One, like, they just was like, oh, well. Like, they could not care any less. That's how much care they had. They had none. I said that right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And, like, I really felt for her because she wanted to transform her character because she didn't want to be a terrorist anymore.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, they were old grannies, but at least they were funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, she just played up on the stereotype. And if I remember correctly, like, I can't remember what her nationality is, but it was something, like, different than what people would consider to be terrorists, like her character.
Yeah.
Oh, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And don't even get me started on Debbie's rude comment to Ruth when Ruth came out to her and said, I was assaulted.
Oh, yeah.
And Debbie was just like, well, you should have stayed. Like, now the show's going to be canceled all because of you, because you wouldn't let yourself get assaulted. Like, that just made me so mad. But, again, it's a thing that happens in real life. Even today, that's what the whole Me Too movement is about.
Me Too and Time's Up. And, I mean, that's why Weinstein got, in so much trouble, because he was one of the main ones doing this.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's pretty much about it. I'm sure that there's other ones out there. Like, I wrote down Carmen. Well, I think with Carmen, she was pressed too hard to do a good job in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
I'm sure she would have been able to think of something great, but she kind of was strapped for time and decided to take something from her brothers. And I understand, like, her brothers being upset, because wrestlers do really take pride in the moves that they come up for their own characters. And so I understand. I mean, that would be kind of like if I had a specific, like, character shtick in my, like, comedy act, and then someone goes and steals it. Like, it's a bad thing in the comedy world to steal, like, jokes and that kind of stuff. So I would equate it to about the same.
That would be like somebody, like, if, for instance, if Friends and How I Met Your Mother were running at the same time, mm-hmm. and they had Chandler say suit up, or Joey say suit up.
Yeah.
It's, that's stealing a catchphrase, and it's kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, don't pressure people so hard and put hard time frames on things.
All right, so today, the principles in the parable of Glow's Season 2, which really missed an opportunity, should have been round 2. We talked about it being more than a show, about how it's a sign of community, how just doing something together like that really does build community. It really does kind of, and you can see it even on the screen, is that, all the actors really have that community with each other. And kind of combining your worlds with community in that. We talked about that with More Than a Show. We also talked about women in the workplace, and about how, some of the tropes were displayed during the show, during Season 2, and really kind of the characters really struggling with that, and what to do with it, and where to go from there.
Yes. It does get better, ladies. Not very much, but it gets better.
So, we are working on a lot. In fact, we've got a few shows lined up for the next few weeks. Next week, obviously, we're going to be talking about Handmaid's Tale. Mm-hmm. It will probably be a 2-part episode.
I will probably cry.
There's a lot. Season 2 was very difficult to watch. So if you have not yet watched it, do not binge it for your own mental health, because you may need to take breaks, is what I'm saying.
And if you take breaks, that's okay.
Yeah, taking
Listen
breaks
to the podcast
is
later.
okay. If you watched it all the way through like we did, then welcome to the world that is what we're living with today, I guess. So that's coming up. We did get to go see Ant-Man and the Wasp this week, so we are going to be working on that for after The Handmaid's Tale. Mm-hmm. We are still working on The Magicians. We are still trying to find out where we can see Legion Season 2.
Ooh, Evil Genius on Netflix? Maybe?
Evil Genius, we're also going to be doing The Quiet Place.
Yeah.
We have been watching Queer Eye, but I don't think we're going to talk about that. But honestly, if you're struggling with church, if you're struggling with kind of trying to find your place and being vulnerable and being accepted for who you are as a vulnerable person, I really recommend Queer Eye Season 2, Episode 1 on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I think it's just completely beautiful, just how the Fab Five do with Miss Tammy and with everything that's going on in that church there, and just kind of how things kind of played out. I think it was just a very beautiful show to watch. So take the time, watch it. It's something to make you feel good, a good cathartic cry rather than a oh dear Lord, what have we come to cry.
Yeah, no, I think shows like that are very important. Shows like Queer Eye and Glow are important in today's political atmosphere because we need to feel good sometimes.
Yeah. No, this is what I was saying with my review was that Glow was a perfect break to everything that was going on. It was probably a good thing to watch in this part of The Handmaid's Tale, the second half of season 2 of Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Because it really did give us, some time to really
I don't
decompress.
Feel so overwhelmed for watching Handmaid's Tale season 2 that I did the first season.
It's the opposite for me, but we'll talk about that next week.
Okay. Well, I think for me it's because we were able to watch Glow in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've started a new book. I know that you have been listening to Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. Mm-hmm. You had a funny story from that one that you shared with me today. Oh,
yes. Their latest episode is actually the last... Anytime they do the last chapter of one of the Harry Potter books, the theme they always pick is love. And this last one was on book 4, chapter 37, which is the last chapter. And I highly recommend, if you don't even listen to the podcast, I recommend at least listening to the first 20 minutes because there's a hilarious story that one of the co-hosts tells about coughing and a plane.
And as always, go check out some of the other podcasts on our networks. And fantastic news, by the way, we were just picked up on Spotify as well. So
we're all big and grown now.
Okay. Well, luckily our network started working with them, and so we were able to submit through there. So you can listen to us on Spotify now. Yay!
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, tell your friends about us on Spotify as well and be like, hey, you've got Spotify for your music. Why not listen to some podcasts? And here's a great one to listen to. You liked Glow. Talk about Glow with these people.
Wow, you sound like a commercial for Spotify.
Maybe a little bit, but I'm trying to be a commercial for us. So that's what we've been working on. Come find us on social media. We are on Facebook and on Twitter. And please give us a call if you like today's episode. Or if you want to talk more about Glow Season 2, we would love to talk to you about it. Give us a call at 720-372-3879. Or you can send us a text. Again, that is a Google Voice number. So you can give us a call there and just leave us your thoughts on Glow Season 2. And we'd love to kind of record a little bit and talk to you about whatever it is that you thought about for whatever it was that we talked about. It doesn't have to be Glow Season 2. It can be any of our previous episodes or any of our future episodes, like Handmaid's Tale Season 2. If you have something to say about that, please let us know.
Yep. Also, please review us on all of the podcast places that you listen to our podcast on. Write a nice one, please. That'll be very helpful.
It would be. And so, with all of that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.